Alright, so I told you guys I would make a video for the pre-assessment so you guys can check exactly what you guys got wrong and what you guys got right and the explanations behind each problem. So here it is. I'm going to go through each problem for you, give my explanation on what. So again, while you guys are working through those assignments, you can check back to this video to see how I did something exactly, or you can check the answers that I have for your assignments as well. But let's start looking at them. So number one, it says, given the equation in the table below, which of the following statements is true about the functions g of x and f of x? So again, these four statements talk about the y-intercepts. So that means we're going to have to identify both of these y-intercepts. Now f of x, that's easy. The y-intercept is 5. G of x, however, it's going to be slightly more difficult. So remember, on an axis, given that we have y and we have x, if we have a line, I'm going to just draw whatever, okay? This is the y-intercept. This coordinate on the y-axis, it's always 0. The x value is always 0. Always, always, always. That's one characteristic you guys have to remember. So when you're looking at a table, if you see x equals 0, that number in the g of x in the y column, that's going to be your y-intercept. Now, we don't have that here. All right? So we actually have to figure out what the pattern is and then kind of figure out what 0 is. So again, when you guys are figuring out the pattern, sometimes it's easier than others. In this case, it's semi-easy. You can kind of just look at it and be like, oh, yeah, that's the pattern. But instead, we're going to find the slope mathematically just as a refresher. So again, guys, remember slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm going to pick these coordinates right here. So I'm going to pick 13 minus 9 and 4 minus 2, which gives me 4 over 2, which is 2. So my slope is 2. So for every time x increases, y increases by 2. If x increases by 2, y increases by 4. If x increases by 3, y increases by 6. That's the pattern that follows. So if I want to increase by 2, this is going to increase by 4. So from -2 to 0, that's increasing by 2. So from 1 to whatever, that's increasing by 4, 1 to 5. All right? If that doesn't make sense, you can kind of be like, all right, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. I know that this has to be 1, and I know this has to be 9. So if I just increase by 2, that's 3, that's 5, that's 7, that's 9. And again, that's the one we're looking for. So again, if that's easier to make your own table to fill it out instead of trying to logically pinpoint where x is 0 is, that works too. So again, we have our two y-intercepts, and those y-intercepts are actually the same. They're both 5. So let's see. They're both equal. And again, guys, this is a good question for IF4, for interpreting functions.4, because again, it's all about comparing different characteristics. So being able to find both y-intercepts or being able to find both slopes is very, very important for the EOC. Number 2, it says, what is the equation that represents a line that is perpendicular to the graphed line and passes through the point -6, 6? So again, perpendicular is going to be the key word here. So I'm going to make sure I box it. Perpendicular is the most important word here. That means the slope needs to be a negative reciprocal. Now, the only thing that we have is a line. So I'm actually going to have to figure out what the slope is by counting. I have 2 points, 1, 2, 3 up, 1 over, so it goes up 3 over 1. So this slope is 3. I need perpendicular though. So the slope that I'm going to use is -1/3. This is the slope that I'm going to use. That means A and C are gone. Now I have to figure out where my y-intercept is. This y-intercept is 4, this y-intercept is -4. Now guys, if you're taking the EOC and you want to just kind of estimate between these two, it's pretty easy to tell which one it's going to be. If I draw a line that's perpendicular to this line, it's going to look like that, right? And you can see that goes through 4. So I mean, it's easy to see it's not all the way down here. If I drew this, that's definitely not perpendicular. So just by process of elimination, you can see it has to be B. Okay? But, again, algebraically, if you want to show it, you would have to do y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where you do y minus 6 equals negative 1/3 x plus 6. Again, it's plus because it's a negative 6 here. And again, when you distribute, you have y minus 6 equals negative 1/3 x minus 2. And you add 6, and that's where you get the plus 4 from. So again, it has to be B. Number 3, what explicit equation represents the pattern in the table below? If we take a look, that's plus 10, plus 10, plus 10, plus 10. So the common difference is 10. I lied. It's not plus 10. It's minus 10, minus 10, minus 10, minus 10. So the common difference is negative 10. That means my slope has to be negative 10. That means C and B are gone. Again, don't make that mistake. You see how easy it was that I made that mistake because I'm trying to rush through it. So again, take your time. If we have A and D left over though, well, my y-intercept, negative 65, negative 55, negative 45, negative 35, negative 25, negative 15 is the next mark, and that's when x is 0. And remember, from back in number 1, we need to figure out when x is 0. That's negative 15. So it has to be A. Alright? Number 4. It says a set of weights includes a 4-pound barbell and 6 pairs of weight plates. Each pair of weight plates is 20 pounds. So each pair is 20 pounds. If x represents number of plates that are added to the barbell, the total weight of the barbell in plates and pounds can be represented by f of x plus 20. What is the range of this function? So again, guys, the range is going to be the weights. Or sorry, the weight of the total barbell. So we know if I have no plates on there, it weighs 4 pounds. Again, don't get it confused with the domain. The domain is how many pairs of plates I use. The range is the weight of the plates. So if I use 0 pairs, it weighs 4 pounds. If I use 1 pair, well, each pair is 20, it weighs 24 pounds. If I use 2 pairs, add 20, 44 pounds, etc., etc. So, as I see, the only one that has that is B. Number 5. The table shown represents some points on the graph of a linear equation. Which equation represents the same relationship? Well, they're using 268 and 20. So that means they're using this point right here. So I actually don't care about these. Now remember, it's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now since they're using negative 20 and negative 268, we are not using B or D. B or D has 20 for the y value, but we know the 20 is the x value. So now we got to figure out, alright, what's our slope? This one's 1/12, this one's 12. So go back to your original points. I know I crossed them out, but I'm still going to use them. I'm going to use these two. Negative 40 minus negative 124, or plus 124, over negative 1 minus plus 8. Negative 1 plus 8. Well, I mean, just by looking at this, guys, this number on top is going to be much larger than the number on the bottom. So again, since it's y over x, it's definitely going to become 12, but if we just do it real quick, that's going to be 80 over 84 over 7, which is 12. So it's C. So again, guys, as you can see, finding slope is going to be extremely important on this EOC. So make sure you guys are comfortable with taking a table and picking points and plugging them into the slope formula and then plugging those into slope-intercept or point-slope, either or. Number 6, the slope of a line that passes through the points negative 6w and negative 10,4 is 1/8. What is the value of w? So this kind of takes the whole slope and makes you work backwards. They give you the slope. They want you to find one of the points. So we know that slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right? So that means if I take this, I know m is 1/8. I know y2 is 4. I know y1 is w. I know x2 is -10. x1 is 6. Also see why I have plus 6, because this was a -6. Now, if you guys don't remember for 7th grade math, this is a proportion. And how we solve proportions is by cross multiplying. Now, 6 plus -10 times 1 is just going to be 6 plus -10. This is -4. Now this, on the other hand, is 8 times 4 minus w. All right? So again, you can simplify all this down. You're going to have -4 equals 32 minus 8w. You can subtract 32. You get -36 equals -8w. And when you divide by -8, you're going to get 36 over 8. But 4 can actually go in both of these. 4 goes into here 9 times. 4 goes into 8 twice. It's 9 halves. I know on the assignments that I gave you guys, the one I gave you actually gives you a whole number as an answer. So some of you were like, can I just plug each one of these in? Can't I plug in 36 and see if it works? Can't I plug in 34 and see if it works? Can't I plug in 9 halves? Can't I plug in 1 half? Guys, that is a very reasonable way to solve this. All right, given that if you have a multiple choice question, you can use that to your advantage. Don't be afraid to plug numbers in to see if the math works out. All right, given these standardized tests, that is one way you can work through them. The other way is by doing the math. Number 7, determine the value of k given f of x equals k minus 7x and f of -2 equals 8. Now with this question, again, it's working backwards. It tells you what x is. It tells you x is -2. So we have k minus 7 times -2. And when you plug in -2, you're going to get 8 as an answer. Simplify this down and we're good. K plus 14 equals 8. Subtract 14 on both sides. 8 minus 14, -6. Number 8, the population of Hogwarts from the year 2000 through 2010 is shown in the graph. If the trend continues, what will the population of Hogwarts be in 2015? So again, guys, this is using your graph and figuring out the pattern, the slope, and then predicting what's going to happen in the future. So if I look at this, I need to figure out what my slope is. So my slope is m equals, well, 250 minus 193 over 10 minus 0. Because again, from 2000 to 2010, that's 10 years. We want to figure out in 2015 though. Well, 150, that's what, 57? 57 over 10, which is 5.7. Correct? Well, now I want to figure out how much it's going to be in 2015. So from 2010 to 2015, that's 5 more years. So if I just do 5.7 times 5 times 5, I get 28.5. If I add 28.5 to 250, which is the last total I had, I get 278.5. Again, this is in thousands. That means it's 278,500. Number 9, the table represents some points on the graph of a linear function h. Which situation can be modeled by this function? So again, if I'm looking 490, 295, 230, 100, it's going down, it's decreasing. So the cost in dollars of X items that cost $2.45 each. If they cost $2.45 each, this thing would be going down. Well, actually, if we're trying to figure out the cost would be going up. That doesn't make sense at all. The number of miles an airplane had traveled after flying 555 miles per hour. This implies that the slope is 555. That means this would be decreasing by 555 each time. That's not the case. The remaining number of miles, alright, remaining, that means we're losing them, on a 620-mile trip after traveling 65 miles per hour. If I look from 5 to 6, that's 65. That's 65 right here. My slope here, if I look, is 65. Well, if I knew my starting value, I could figure that out. So from 2 to 1, I just add 65 on. So if I'm going to do 490 plus 65, if I'm working backwards, that's 555. That's where they must have got the 555 from. But we know that this isn't the y-intercept. I have to do it one more time. That's 620. So it starts at 620, which the question said, and you're traveling 65 miles per hour. That works. If I take a look at D, it says the amount owed on a loan. Again, this isn't the starting value. If this said 620, this would also be right, but we can't have two correct answers anyways. Again, guys, this is not the starting value. The starting value is 620. Number 10, line segment JK has endpoints -3, 4, and 3, 6, which is an equation of a line that is perpendicular to line segment JK and passes through the midpoint JK. So first and foremost, perpendicular is a big word here. Midpoint is a big word here. It has to pass through the midpoint. Let's find the midpoint. Again, guys, find the midpoint just means we're taking the average of the two coordinates. So 3 plus -3 divided by 2 is 0. So 3 plus -3 divided by 2, well, that's just 0 over 2, which is 0. So my x-coordinate is 0. My y-coordinate, 6 plus 4 divided by 2, that's 10 divided by 2, that's 5. So it's going through 0, 5. It's going through 0, 5. Now, it also says it's perpendicular. That means I also need the slope. So, if I find the slope of this line segment, it's going to be 6 minus 4, and this is getting confusing because I have a lot of work, 6 minus 4 over 3 minus -3. 3 minus -3 is 3 plus 3. 6 minus 4 is 2 over 6, that's 1/3. So this slope is 1/3. But again, guys, I need perpendicular. Perpendicular does not mean the same slope. It means negative reciprocal. Negative reciprocal of 1/3, flip it, it's 3, make it negative, it's -3. A and C are gone. That just means I have B and D left. Again, now I need to figure out, okay, where is my y-intercept? We have a coordinate, we have the slope. Let's just plug it into point slope form. Y minus 5 equals -3 times x minus 0. That's just going to be 0. So it's y minus 5 equals -3x. Add 5. Well, -3x plus 5. That's B. Number 11. A circle has a center point at -8 and -7. Line segment EF is diameter. Diameter means all the way across of a circle. Point F is located at -2, -12. So this is one edge of it, and this is the center. What are the coordinates of point E? Point E is the other edge of the circle. So it gives me the midpoint. Basically, that's what it's saying. It's saying, hey, the center of the midpoint is -8, -7. It gives me one endpoint. So I have to work through and figure out what my existing coordinate is, the last one. Again, just like we did before in the previous example, you can plug these coordinates in and figure out if this is the endpoint. This is, sorry, midpoint. You can plug this coordinate with this coordinate with this, and if you get -8, -7 out, well, you got your answer. Or if you want to see how to do it algebraically, you can just, well, use your midpoint formula. You know that x1 plus x2 divided by 2 has to be the midpoint for x. So if I take -2 and I add to it my x value and I divide by 2, I better get out -8. Again, guys, this is a linear equation we solved back in 7th grade. You know, to eliminate my denominator, this is division. We multiply. So I have -2 plus x equals -16. Add 2. X is -14. So the x-coordinate I need is negative 14. The only one over here with x-coordinate negative 14 is A. You could do the same thing for y. You could have done negative 12 plus y divided by 2 equals negative 7, and you would have got the same answer. You would have got negative 2 as your y-coordinate. Obviously, if there's multiple negative 14s, you would have to figure out what the y-coordinate is. And again, also, you could have just plugged each coordinate in and see if you got your midpoint out. But again, that takes more work, especially if your answer is D. In this case, it was A, so it would have been just as quick. Number 12, the recursive formula for a sequence where A112, what is the explicit formula for the sequence? Well, guys, remember with recursive formulas, you have to plug in the previous answer. So for every answer we plug in, we have to add 3 to it. It's changing by 3 each time. That means the common difference is 3. The common difference is also known as your slope. Because remember, recursive doesn't follow slope-intercept form. Recursive follows a different pattern. So your slope here is 3. That means I'm looking for an explicit formula with a slope of 3. B and D have a slope of 12. So it's either A or C. Now, it tells us our first term is 12. Don't fall for this trap. Don't circle A right away. Because again, the y-intercept is not when x is 1. It's when x is 0. So I have to work backwards. If I'm adding 3, to work backwards, I have to subtract 3. 12 minus 3 is 9. That means my y-intercept is 9. It's C. Again, guys, be careful with those arithmetic sequences. Number 13, an arithmetic sequence has the following properties. A of 1 is 2, and, well, that's recursive. A of n minus 1 is plus 5. What are the first 4 terms of the sequence? So basically, plug this in and add 5. 2 plus 5 is 7. Now plug in 7. 7 plus 5 is 12. Plug in 12. 12 plus 5 is 17. So my first terms, first 4 are 2, 7, 12, and 17. 2, 7, 12, 17. Number 14, determine whether the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. In order to determine whether or not they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither, we have to know the slopes. That means they have to be in y equals mx plus b form. So divide by negative 2. That's y equals negative 8x plus 5. Here, I have to subtract 8, so I have 8y equals x minus 8, divide by 8, and I get y equals 1/8 x minus 1. 1/8, negative 8, those are negative reciprocals. That's perpendicular. Again, if they want you guys, if you have to know the slope, you have to put it in slope-intercept form first. Last question, number 15, and then we're done. Determine which line is parallel to 4y equals negative 8x plus 10. Again, guys, we have to make them in y equals mx plus b form. So if I divide by 4, my slope is negative 2. So I have to figure out, of these, which one has a slope of negative 2. Now, that means A, you have to put all these in slope-intercept form. But if you're able to think through this, and I'm asking a lot, but if you're able to think through this, it shouldn't be that bad. You know you're going to have to, first off, add 4. So right now, this is plus 4x. You know you have to divide by 2. If I divide by 2, my slope is 2, not negative 2. For b, I have to add 4x. So that means I have 24 plus 4x. Divide by negative 2, I have m is negative 2. So b is the answer. A lot of you also saw D as an answer, because when I made this quiz, I didn't realize both had a slope of negative 2. If I subtract 4x here, I have 24 minus 4x, and then if I divide by 2, my m is also negative 2. So I actually went through and fixed these for you guys. Both of these are correct. So if you put B and D, if you put D, I switched it to B and gave you credit, because B was the correct answer that I put into GradeCam. But again, I gave you guys credit anyways. because there shouldn't be 2 correct answers. That was my bad. But again, guys, you have to put these in slope-intercept form before you do anything. You cannot tell whether or not, you can't tell what the slope is until it's in slope-intercept form. All right. Now that was the pre-assessment, guys. The post-assessment, again, first off, your assignments look similar to these questions. These questions are higher order questions. I feel that given the state and what kind of questions they give you, these are either at or well above what you're going to see. In my eyes, a lot of these are above. Okay, so if you can get these, all right, you should have no problem taking the state test. So hopefully you guys find these questions fair. Hopefully you understand them. If you don't understand them, rewatch the video. And if you're still having questions, come to me and hopefully I can clear it up. Otherwise, keep working at it, guys. The post-assessment will look very similar to this, so be ready for that. Otherwise, best of luck. I'll see you guys later.